are principally two defensive driving systems in America. The first is Smith system, created in 1948 by a guy named Fred Smith. And it's been around forever. It's got millions of followers. It's got tens of thousands of clients, and it's old school. Traditionally, you would either go to Dallas, Texas, or San Diego, their two main offices, and spend a week there. Or if you had a big enough group of people, they would come out to you. They would hold a workshop usually for about a day. And then you would climb into a full-size van with 8 people at a time, and you drive around for 4 days doing what's called commentary driving. There are 5 principles, they call them the 5 keys to safety. And it's aim high in steering, keep your eyes moving, get the big picture, leave yourself an out, and make sure they see you. That's 21 words.
Yeah.
We have look ahead, look around, leave room, and communicate, which means the same thing. Instead of aim high in steering, it's look ahead. Keep your eyes moving, look around, right? Leave yourself an out, leave room, and make sure they see you, communicate. So the history is Greyhound lines, been around for 100 years. In the Allman Brothers songs, every piece of babies on Greyhound buses. They've been around forever. They were our customer, and they were using Smith system since the early 1950s. And Greyhound had at the time about 6,000 drivers and about 450 instructors. Every year at the same time in June, all of the instructors would go to Rantoul, Illinois, to a closed down Air Force base where 1,200 trainees would arrive on buses to learn how to be bus drivers.
Wow.
Out of the 1,200 trainees, about 40% of them failed out and were called NBO, which is called next bus out. We sent them back home. It was extraordinarily expensive. It was inefficient, and it took 8 weeks to make people into bus drivers. And so, and they were using Smith system. Smith got purchased by some investment guys that year, bankers, whatever. And they looked at their product line. They said, holy shit, we only have one thing. We have the Smith system. We have 5 keys. How do we make more money out of this thing? And somebody got the bright idea in that year to say, okay, we're going to go back to all of our existing customers and say, new rules. If you want to use our system, you have to get recertified every 2 years. And it's $2,500 a piece.
Ooh.
Well, Alex Gorianto, who was a good friend of ours and a long-term customer and still is to this day, called me on a Friday afternoon. He goes, Mark, he goes, they just wrote me a letter, looks very, very threatening, almost like a legal notice that says I have to recertify all my guys sometime in the next 3 weeks, or I can't use Smith system this June. This was like in the spring. He says, 450 guys times $2,500 is $2.8 million. What can you come up with for a little bit less than that? And we laughed about that. And I says, I don't have anything. So I concocted, literally did build just between us, Triple LC, on the ideas of Smith systems. They're very solid ideas. But to this day, I would argue that Triple LC is easier to teach, faster to memorize, and because of our modernity and our ability to make some of the courseware into web-based courses, which Smith didn't originally do. They do today, but they didn't even a few years ago. We could move a lot of the knowledge-based learning, which is principles, concepts, stuck to the gray matter, memorized, give them a test, like geography or whatever. We could move a lot of that to the web and deliver it over the web on somebody's own time, reducing the amount of time I have to take the person off the road or even keep the person in the classroom.
Right.
There was still a benefit and a value to bringing people into the workshop, so we do that. And then, of course, we do need to get out into the vehicle and drive around doing what's called commentary driving. But then we took it a step further, because when Smith does their instruction, all they do is take a person through the process to teach them how to be a really good defensive driver. And the person has to be a really good commentary driver and saying all the right things. Like, I'm aiming high and steering as I see a green light ahead, 15 seconds. I'm covering my brake. All the same things we say, only different words, right?
Right.
But after the person does it for 5 days with 8 people in the van, and some people are picking their nose and reading, looking at their phone or whatever they're doing, we do it with a smaller group. We limit it to 3 people at a time because they all have to be actively involved. One person is actively involved in doing commentary driving. One person is actively involved observing and reading from the study guide our specific standards for things. Like as you approach an intersection, you need to look left, right, left before and after, or before and during your entry into the intersection. That person has to read those bullet points out of the study guide, so they don't get to go to sleep in the back seat.
Right.
The other person is a coach. The other person is an instructor. And so instead of Mark Gardner being some master guru, I sit in the back seat and I let Nick be the coach of this other person who's his peer. And so if the person doesn't know the speed limit, or the person's going over the, changing lanes without signaling, not checking their mirrors, my expectation is Nick is going to say something like, well, when's the last time you checked your mirrors? How far back are you? What's the speed limit here? And so in that way, we allow the person to develop the coaching and instructing skills in addition to the driving skills. And then we pull over, we do a debrief, an evaluation, grade the person on a 5-point scale. Everybody changes seats. Some kind of fire drill. I can't remember what those things are called.
Yeah,
Everybody
Chinese
changes.
fire drill.
I didn't want to say that. All right. Everybody changes seats and we go back out for another hour and do it. And the beauty is, after 4 hours of hearing look ahead, look around, leave room, and communicate, virtually everybody in the vehicle has got it memorized backwards and forwards.
Yeah.
And each person gets subsequently better than the last one, because you get to go to school on somebody. Like the person number 2 says, oh, I'm not going to do that because that guy got hollered at 3 times. I know, yeah. And by the time you get to the third person, they look like a pro. All right, so Triple LC is our protocol for both teaching drivers defensive driving, as well as teaching instructors, and in both cases, certifying them through a protocol or a process that includes evaluations, testing, grading, documenting. And another benefit that we have over Smith is because we started in the 2000s instead of 1948, we have a national database of every single person that's ever been certified in Triple LC. Nice. We maintain that database, the date they went through it, the type of vehicle they're authorized to do it. And then we maintain that, and we can give them a reference if they want it. We've had a few ask for references when they change jobs. Like Smith, we have many of the same bling items. We send frame certificates, lapel pins, embroidered patches. We send coffee mugs and keychains and flashlights and sunglasses and hats and all that shit. After they've graduated, and they can buy more as well. And we have a series of posters as well, which Smith does as well. And so Smith typically today, I think, is charging about $2,900 a person, still takes 5 days. We're charging $1,000 a person, it takes 1 or 1.5 days. And so we're faster to get you back to work, and we're 1/2 the price at best. So if these people know Smith, they may say, well, how do you compare to Smith? Those are the words I'm going to say. If they say, how do you compare to National Safety Council? I'm going to say, well, that's kind of like the space shuttle versus a tricycle. National Safety Council is a nonprofit entity that's got some really cheesy videos made in the 70s that is not anything like a certification protocol at all. The other thing that Avatar offers, or Avatar Fleet offers, is we have grown our library. So Avatar Fleet has the A Fleet, which you've been through. That's the 5 persona of competitive eater and health nut and wheels with the hot pants on and all that. Yeah. Those are 16 web-based modules providing about 8 hours of study. But in addition to that, that we have another 40 safety tune-ups that are 2 to 3 minutes long, that can be very focused and can be pushed out to a phone, delivered over our learning management system or yours, and can be built into an ongoing safety communication campaign for your people. Because all of us went to high school, but none of us can do a quadratic equation now, even though we once upon a time did. And so we contend that once a person goes through Triple LC, that we need to make the learning sticky. We need to make sure that the message is constantly in front of them, and we use our safety tune-ups for that. So Triple LC and the A Fleet and the safety tune-ups collectively provide all of the content information for both knowledge and skills for your instructors and for your drivers. By the way, once your instructors are certified, they're then allowed and authorized to teach your drivers using the materials that we provide. There are discrete videos for the drivers, there are workshop materials, and then there are evaluation forms where you take the drivers out and do the same routine with them. But unlike instructors, they don't instruct, they just drive and do the commentary. So it's a little bit shorter. On the leadership front, we have developed a leadership development course that has 24 different subjects or units of study. And some people jokingly refer to it as charm school. Many dispatchers, operations managers, and fleet managers were once upon a time a very good truck driver. And somebody said, Nick, you're a really good truck driver. We need a dispatcher. And they made you a dispatcher. Nick knows trucks. Nick knows customers. Nick knows travel routes. Nick knows all the troubles and tribulations that a driver has to go through. Nick does not necessarily have any formal education in soft skills or leadership. It would be much like you becoming a father today. Oh, wait, that's true. That is what happens, isn't it? Yeah, we all become a parent with absolutely zero training to be a parent, which is why we're all messed up. So leadership development takes a person through the learning curve of understanding basic communication, send, receive, interpret, respond, empathy, conflict resolution, problem solving. It also gets in some tactical things like how to delegate, how to hold people accountable, and how to manage time more effectively. And over a period of time, your people go through one course a month. It's 30 minutes long. It's a web-based course. So at that point, all they're learning is knowledge. They haven't learned any skill yet. They're just learning about conflict, right? How to resolve conflict. And so at the end of each 30-minute program, they print out a self-guided study that's usually 2 or 3 pages long that challenges them to go back to their workplace and try stuff out. So sometime in the next month, you're going to have a situation where a guy comes in and complains that he didn't get home for his son's birthday. What are you going to do or say? How are you going to use this? And you apply what you learned in the web-based course. And as you do, you take notes and you jot things down like, well, I tried this and they kicked me in the ear or whatever, or it worked. Now, in a perfect world, which is rare, but in a perfect world with a company that's got good leadership, they would assign mentors who are not the boss, but mentors who are knowledgeable to each of the people going through the course. And sometime toward the end of the month, they would debrief the person. They say, okay, well, let's see, this last month we were working on problem solving. Did you use these techniques? How did it work? Did it work well or bad? And they would give them a little bit of coaching. And then the following month, they would go through another course and another course. So that it takes a couple of years to get through the thing. And some people say, well, screw that. I just want to go through as fast as I can. And I said, well, you can, but that's foolish because you're not going to be able to digest all of these different principles and apply all of these different skills in the short term. It takes time to develop those skills. And so in the case of Brisk, where they're putting their people through it, some of them have already gone through 9 or 10 courses in a matter of 3 or 4 months. I argue that it's not enough time for them to develop the myriad of course skills that are necessary. And so we try and encourage them to do it according to our protocol, but they're allowed to go faster if they want. So leadership development was initially designed for Keenan Advantage Group in Canton. They have about 8,000 drivers.
Yeah, they're big.
And the idea was to improve the relationship between fleet managers and drivers so that we would reduce the frequency of voluntary turnover. Now you're selling into a market that cares about drivers and empty seats. And for 40 years, or at least since Reagan was president, so since 82 is deregulation. Since 1982, the industry has said, we have a driver shortage and we have to recruit like hell to get more drivers in here. And I liken it to a bucket and a hose. The bottom of the bucket has a hole in it because drivers keep quitting. And instead of trying to find a plug for that, everyone throws up their arms and says, well, I can't fix my bucket, just turn the hose on higher. And they keep trying to hire and find more drivers. This has been a vicious cycle for 40 years. And so we argue that the leadership development course makes a small dent or reduces slightly the number of drivers who are going out the bottom of the bucket because a driver got jerked around, he felt disrespected, he was going to quit, but Nick, through the charm school that we put him through, says, I'm sorry, you know what, I did screw up. I didn't do it on purpose. It's not a disrespect thing. I just made a dumb mistake and left you in Boston for the weekend. Please forgive me. I make mistakes. And that's hard for people. No one wants to admit that they made a mistake. But when you do make a mistake, it makes you it makes you a stronger leader. And it makes a stronger bond between you and that driver. And the driver goes, all right, whatever. You really pissed me off, but at least you didn't disrespect me. You just made a mistake. And there's a chance that he might stay. And so we have promoted the leadership development course as a means by which you can reduce turnover. And the holy grail is keep your trucks full and keep the drivers with you.